What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10, and then we either build or fix them together. Now, today is our final video for the series covering the Barbarian class, and of course, we are ending on a Zealot Barbarian build. So, if you are ready to harness the fury of the gods to deal a ton of damage to your enemies and kinda never die, today is your ticket. So go ahead and leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. As you can see, most people are actually not subscribed who watch this channel, so please don't be one of those people. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. It takes half a second, and then click that bell so that you get notified whenever I put up new videos. We're covering bards starting next week, so you don't want to miss that. And of course, share this with your friend. Word of mouth is really, really nice. So listen, all I'm saying is if you take this and show this to 2 people and they subscribe, and then those people show it to 2 people, we could be monetized by next week. But so it would be really nice if you would help me out with that, and let's go ahead and see what we're gonna do for today's build. So the Zealot Barbarian focuses on 2 things: damage and survivability, but not in the same way that something like the Totem Warrior focuses on survivability. The Totem Warrior focuses more on taking a bunch of damage, getting more use out of your hit points, and having resistance to all damage but psychic. So that is very effective, and I'll admit probably slightly more effective than what we are doing here. However, we're going for damage today and not really worrying so much about the defensive side of things, and so we're just gonna kind of let the low AC ride, and we're just gonna go for power as much as we can here. There are a lot of honorable mentions for this. I'm just gonna tell you, we did several builds before settling on this one, but I think this is one that you will be really happy with if you try it out. It's very simple actually, but I think it'll be a lot of fun. So let's go ahead and see what we came up with. All right, for our race, we actually went with the half orc. We haven't actually done one of those yet in our series, but there's nothing wrong with half orcs. Half orcs are a pretty cool race, and they get a lot of really cool things. First of all, we get dark vision, which is great. We get proficiency in intimidation, which is also really good. But we're here for the last 2 things that we get. First of all, relentless endurance. And so basically when we would drop to 0 HP, we're just gonna not do that and drop to 1 instead, as long as we're not killed outright. This is fantastic. Just adding a little bit more of a buffer zone there. If we would be knocked out, we're just gonna get right back up. And we also have an extra damage die added to our crits, which is really, really nice. And we're gonna be using that. So that's kind of the basis of our build. That's where I wanted to start. And I want to make use of everything that we get from our race, and I feel like we can really do that with the half orc and the Zealot Barbarian. I feel like they've got a lot of really good synergy, and so we're going to make use of that. Of course, our class is going to start Barbarian because that's what we do in this series. We have to take at least 11 levels of our featured class and subclass, and then after that we can kind of do whatever we want. And we do have to take level 1 in our specific class, just because that's what we've already talked about. For equipment, we're just going to take standard equipment here pretty much. You're going to want to take the scale mail and eventually work up to half plate. Half plate will be very nice in getting your AC as high as we can, but we're not going to be really focusing on AC all that much. Our focus is definitely going to be more on the damage side. So our AC is probably not going to be great. We also are not going to be focusing on like maxing out Constitution in this build, so unarmored defense really isn't going to be all that much of your friend either. So probably grab scale mail and just kind of eat the disadvantage on stealth. It is what it is. Then you also are going to want to take a great axe. This is the only option that I'm going to recommend for this one because it has the highest hit die. The way that the feature works for half orcs is you roll another damage die. So with this, it is a D12. So you would double the dice when you're rolling a crit, and then this allows you to add 1 more die on top of that. And then, of course, as you know, Barbarians also get to do this later. So we are focusing on making our crits hit really, really hard, and we want to get crits as often as we can. And so that's kind of our build here. That's our whole shtick with this build, and I think that we can find ways to make this work. As far as ability scores, let's go ahead and jump to those. We're using our modified standard array, of course, and so we're gonna go with the most standard way of doing this. 17 strength, 15 constitution, 13 dex, 12 wisdom, 10 charisma, 8 intelligence. This is the most standard way to optimize a barbarian build, and so I think that this is more than fair. You could make a case for switching constitution and dexterity on this build, just because we're not super focused on the constitution aspect of as far as making sure we have a ton of HP, but HP is always good. If we don't have to use those resources, that would be perfect, but we probably are going to have to use them, and so Relentless Endurance will come through, and then we're going to get something else as we level up, which is going to stack on top of that for helping us to just kind of not ever die. So let's go ahead and start taking levels. All right, first level, we're of course starting Barbarian, and this is going to give us a couple really cool things, except that we're not using one of them. We get unarmored defense, but we're not going to be using it. We're just going to use armor because our constitution's not going to be crazy and our dexterity's not going to be crazy. So we're probably just going to be better off just wearing the armor, at least for now, and working our way up to half plate eventually. You're going to get more mileage if you do that. We also get rage, which is one of the best features that we get as a barbarian, adding a little bit of extra damage, giving us some bonuses to strength and some resistances. So, you know, we're going to get a lot of mileage as far as, even though we don't have the most HP in the world, at least considering barbarians, you know, we do have a D12 hit die, which is absolutely fantastic. It's the best thing we can have. And so, you know, we're going to have quite a bit of HP just because of that anyway, and we still get resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing just because we are a barbarian. So we're still going to have a lot of survivability. I mean, most of the damage you're going to be taking is bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing. So yeah, you're still gonna be just fine as long as you only get hit when you're raging. And then we get Reckless Attack at level 2, as well as Danger Sense. Reckless Attack is going to be something we're going to be using all the time. Reckless Attack is incredibly important for this build, and I honestly considered multiclassing here at level 2, but I don't think that it's the optimal way of going about this build, so we're going to go ahead and take Reckless Attack first. This just gives us advantage on all of our attack rolls. It does make us take advantage against us, so everybody else gets attack on us, but it's not that bad though, and honestly the good outweighs the bad, so it's worth using. Definitely use it. Barbarian 3, we get to take our subclass, and we are of course going path of the Zealot. So we get a couple of features here at level 3, and the first is Divine Fury. So we just get to add some extra damage to our hits. That's it. 1d6 plus half our barb level. So that's not that bad, right? I mean, it doesn't scale great, but it's free damage. And that free damage also gets added on when we crit, and so we're hoping to crit and just pile on all the dice. Just roll all of the dice when you hit really hard. We also get Warrior of the Gods here, and so this allows us to just basically be not as much of a hassle if we do go down. Like I said, we're trying to be, you know, kind of immortal by the end of this, and we get to that point later. But if for some reason you do die, this takes out the need for any kind of costly spell components. So that's pretty good. Helps out your team a little bit. We also get Primal Knowledge, so we get another skill proficiency, and we get a third Rage, which is pretty cool. At level 4, I think we all know where this is going. Yes, our stats really need help, but we're going to ignore it. We're going to ignore it, because Great Weapon Master is a thing that we are going to go ahead and take. So you can take a -5 penalty to your hit and get +10 to damage, among other things. And this is just great for our damage. We're going to make this easier to use as we go. Remember, you do have advantage on all of your strikes, and your bonus to hit isn't terrible. It's not the best it could be, and we definitely will work on improving it as we go. This definitely is a character that would be better for high level kind of stuff, because it takes a little while for it to get going, but once it does, this thing is kind of insane. It does a lot of damage. So yeah, we're gonna take Great Weapon Master instead of, you know, fixing our problems and having all of those odd numbers and all those things. Level 5, we're gonna get extra attack and fast movement. So extra attack, we get to hit twice as part of our attack action, and fast movement, we just get to move a little bit quicker, which is great. Now we begin multiclassing, and this was, I don't think it was much of a tough decision on what I was going to multiclass into. I did have one backup that I almost went into, but we'll talk about that at the end. But I think it's obvious that we're going fighter here. Fighter, it just gives us too many good things in such a short amount of levels that we really can't pass it up if this is what we're going for on this build. You will find fighter on all kinds of builds, on all classes. Fighter is just that versatile in its multiclassing ability. It gets a lot at the very beginning, so it was a no-brainer for me. So at level 1, we get a fighting style, and I was between a couple of them, but I ended up going with Great Weapon Fighting. Now, Great Weapon Fighting, in fairness, isn't the best. It's not the best fighting style. It's only going to help your damage by a little bit, especially with it rolling a d12. It's not going to come up super often, but it can help. It helps your average damage by a couple of points. So, you know, it's pretty nice. We also get second wind, so we get a little bit of healing, 1d10 plus fighter level, which is not going to be all that great as far as scaling, but you know, it's fine. We're only going to be taking a few levels of fighter anyway, so it's all good. But you know, anything helps. It's really nice. Next, we get Action Surge at fighter level 2, and this is the whole reason we're here. Action Surge is kind of busted, so basically we can just once per short rest, we can just kind of attack twice, and that's in addition to extra attacks. So we get 4 attacks, which is amazing. And each of those can be with advantage with our reckless attack, and if we crit on any of those, then you know, God help that creature, because it's not going to work out for that creature. It's very, 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 very strong. Level 3, we get our subclass for fighter, and there were a lot that were really appealing here, and we'll talk about why at the very end of the video, but we ended up going with champion. And so this is a very, very simple fighter subclass, but it's also very effective at what it does, especially when you have advantage on everything. We now get improved critical, which just means that we have double the chance of critting. This is worth a 3-level dip for me. So we're focusing on making sure that our crits do a lot, and this helps us to crit twice as much as we normally would. That's pretty fantastic. I find that really hard to pass up. I really think that it's going to give us a lot of mileage, and yeah, it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. Level 9, we jump back to Barbarian. Now, I considered taking Barb 6 before the dip, but honestly, Fanatical Focus, being able to reroll saving throw, that's too defensive, and we're not focusing on defensive on this build. We're focusing on offensive, and so I was like, it can wait. So now we get it. Now we get Fanatical Focus, and we get our 4th Rage as well. At level 10, we are a Barbarian 7, and we get Feral Instinct and Instinctive Pounce, so advantage on initiative is wonderful. And Instinctive Pounce, we can move a little bit when we rage, which is great. Next level, level 11, Barb 8. We get another ASI. This is a tough one, and this honestly was a little up in the air. We're definitely taking an ability score improvement here. As much as I want to take Sentinel at some point in this build, I think the ASIs are a little more important. And so we're definitely taking a +1 to strength. And for this, I'm going to go with dexterity, because this gives us a little bit of help with our initiative, which is fantastic. And of course, those saving throws against physical effects that we can see. The biggest thing is initiative, and I really want to help that out, especially since we just got advantage on it. This just helps us to go even earlier, because we really want to make sure that we are moving early, because positioning is everything for Barbarians. If you are caught in the wrong spot, you might be in trouble, and so this helps us to be able to maneuver around at the beginning of the fight and not get caught in a situation where we are in a lot of trouble. Level 12, we are a Barb 9, and we get our first little bit of taste of what we're going for here, and we get our Brutal Critical here. So we get Brutal Critical as part of being a Barbarian, so this also boosts our crits. So as you can see, we're going for boosted crits as much as we possibly can, and now because we are champion, we have now doubled the chance of us critting. So yeah, we get to roll another die on top of what we've been rolling for our crits, which is insane. And also our rage damage is just more now. It's now +3, so that's really, really helpful as well. At level 13, we are a Barbarian 10, and we, of course, get our next subclass feature, which is Zealous Presence. And so what this does is it allows us to give advantage to our allies, even though we already have advantage ourselves. So everybody's attacking with advantage. It's a bonus action. It only lasts for a turn, but it's totally fine though. Advantage is going to help your fighter, who can also action surge and just have all of the advantage. Yeah, it's your samurai fighter friend is going to be very, very happy with you. Yeah, or even your Echo Knight or anything like that. They're going to be very, very happy with you getting advantage on all of their strikes, which is fantastic. And we also get a second skill proficiency from Primal Knowledge. Level 14, Barbarian 11, we get Relentless Rage. Now, this is where we start getting a little crazy, because this basically is an add-on to our Relentless Endurance that we got from being a half-orc. And so, at least to me, this is how this works. They both can work at the same time, at least to me. So, you make the Constitution saving throw, right? The first one is almost free. It's not quite free, but it's pretty close. And so once you do fail the Constitution saving throw that would drop you from 1 to 0, then Relentless Endurance kicks in and you start making rolls again. So, you know, you could roll higher on the second one around and then you're fine. So I think that it's really, really cool. Those work together really, really well. That's why I really think Half Orc is perfect for this build. It's almost like this is it's almost like the Half Orc was made for this specific subclass, even though this subclass came much later than the Half Orc. It just seems like they're just made for each other, and it just is really cool and makes me very happy. At level 15, we get another ability score improvement or a feat. We're a Barbarian 12, and so here we're going to actually take our Constitution up to an 18. This will combo really, really well with some of our later features as we go on, at least for making sure that we don't really have to focus on finding any kind of survivability. It all just kind of gets baked in. And so boosting our Constitution is going to really, really help with that. We also get our 5th Rage at this point. Level 16, Barbarian 13, Brutal Critical is now 2 die. So yeah, we're doing a lot of damage now, which is kind of insane, but I love it. It's great. Don't worry about it. At level 14 for Barbarian, level 17 overall, we get Rage Beyond Death. And so, yeah, if after all of those things stopped you from dropping to 0 HP, once you drop to 0 HP and you're technically dead, you just kind of don't die. You're just like, nope, not gonna do it. It's crazy. So yeah, you have the barrier of both Relentless Rage and Relentless Endurance holding you from getting to this point. And then even once you get to this point, you still don't die. I mean, it's ridiculous. So we really don't have to focus that much on our survivability, just because our features give it to us anyway. And so that's why I think it's totally fine if we slightly ignore them, because we're going to be fine. It's totally fine anyway. We then get, at level 18, Barbarian 15, we get Persistent Rage, so it's not going to end if we don't make an attack on that turn or anything like that. It's only if we fall unconscious or choose to end the rage, which is fantastic. And then at level 19, Barbarian 16, we get our final ability score improvement or feat. And here, I think it's pretty obvious that I want to go ahead and just max out our Constitution. Yes, again, Sentinel would have been really great to have during the build, but by this point it's a little too late. And going ahead and maxing out Constitution combos really well with our Relentless Rage, and so this helps us to make that saving throw more often than not. And so I really, really think that we're going to get a lot of mileage out of this later on, at least for survivability, for basically free, which is really awesome. We also get a boost in rage damage to +4. And finally at level 20, I wanted to make sure that this was our capstone. So I knew going into this I couldn't do more than a 3-level dip, and so getting champion fighter at level 3 worked out great. We get our 3rd dive brutal critical at level 20. So I think that's a fantastic way to end off this build with the ability that makes our crits even worse than they already were. We're doing them twice as much. I mean, it's just nuts, and I love it. We also get our 6th rage, which I don't think we've gotten on any of our barbarian builds. I think we've gone too deep on all of them, and so this one is pretty cool that we actually get our 6th rage. Not that we are really gonna need it, I wouldn't think, especially with persistent rage, but oh well, it's still nice to have. So that is our build. Let me know down below what you thought and what you might change, what you think would be better, or if you think this is just the best build you've ever seen, just let me know. It's probably not, but it's okay. It's all good. For honorable mentions, I wanted to mention what we almost had happen. For fighters, of course, fighter was the obvious option. Just when I started making the build, I knew it had to be a fighter. But picking which fighter is a lot tougher than I thought. Originally, it was a different race. It wasn't a half orc originally. Originally, I went with custom lineage and picked up Great Weapon Master for free at level 1. But instead, I felt like this was a little bit more effective, at least an effective use of not having to focus on the survivability, on being able to just focus on the offense. So that's the route we went on this one. And so originally I wanted to go Rune Knight. Rune Knight has grown on me quite a bit, and it gives you a little bit of extra damage in addition to the ability to grow. But the second ability is advantage on strength things, and so we already have that from raging. And you know, it's an extra 1d6 damage, which is fine, I guess. But if you can expand your crit range, I feel like that's a little bit more useful here, at least for what we're trying to do. Now, Echo Knight is, of course, very, very tempting. Echo Knight gives you a whole extra attack when you take the attack action, which combos also with Action Surge. So you take the attack action twice as an Action Surge. So you're making 6 attacks, which is ridiculous. So that's really effective. You're not going to crit as often. You're not going to get that double crit chance, but you are attacking 6 times, all with advantage. So definitely a very viable option. Definitely consider that. It is definitely very, very good, but also, you know, Matt Mercer made it and it's kind of busted right there. Some of the stuff he makes is insane, and some of it's just kind of but yeah, this is one of his insane ones that he made. Finally, Battlemaster was one that I considered, because Battlemaster, that's about it. Battlemaster is really, really nice. There's a lot of really good maneuvers that would have helped us out, but overall, I don't think that it was enough to pass just critting twice as much. I really think that we got a lot more out of champion here. Finally, I almost went Paladin. Paladin is really, really cool because we get the Divine Smites. The Divine Smites would have completely changed this build. We would have had to take a much deeper dive into Paladin. And basically, the thing that's really nice about Paladin is, yes, you do need charisma, but you don't have to use it, right? Because we can just not cast spells and use all of our spell slots on our smites and just deal a bunch of extra damage, which would have been great. But you'd have to take a really deep dip, and I don't want to miss out on all of these amazing high-level barbarian features. And I felt like this is a little bit more fun when you're rolling crits twice as much and rolling a bunch of d12s just to absolutely destroy your enemies, and then re-roll 1s and 2s because of our fighting style. So I think that we're going to get a little bit more out of this. It's a much less involved multi-class, and I think it worked out great for this one. So that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Next week we begin talking about bards, the one of the most loved classes by players and one of the most hated, probably just second to rogues. in the game, and at least to DMs. So yeah, the Bard is a bit of a mixed bag for some people, but we're going to talk about its power level from a playing standpoint rather than an annoyance level from a DM standpoint. So we will just see how that goes. Until then, make sure to stay safe out there, stay healthy, wash your hands, all those good things, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.